You built the course, you launched it, and nothing happened. No sales, no notifications, just you refreshing the dashboard, telling yourself it's still early. If that happened to you, or if it's the quiet fear sitting behind your next launch, I need you to hear this because almost everyone gets the diagnosis wrong. It's not your price, it's not your sales page, it's not your thumbnail, your headline, or the day of the week you launched. There's one number that explains nearly every failed course launch I've ever seen. When that number is wrong, nothing else you fix will matter. When it's right, the launch almost always takes care of itself. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that number is, why it quietly sinks most launches, and the specific, genuinely unglamorous fix that actually works. Whether you've actually launched and it fell flat, or you haven't launched yet and you're determined not to get this wrong. Stay with me, this one's worth it. Here's what almost always happens when a course launch underperforms. You launch, sales are lower than you hoped, or they're just not there. You give yourself a day or two to feel deflated, and then you go into problem-solving mode because you're a doer, and doers fix things. But look at what you reach for first. The sales page, the price, the email subject line, the social posts, the launch timing. Notice the pattern. Every one of those is on the surface of the launch. They're the visible, editable things. A headline's fixable, a price is adjustable, a social post can be rewritten tonight, so they feel like the right levers to pull because they're the levers you can actually reach. So you pull them. You rewrite the headline, you knock £50 off the price, you try a punchier hook in your emails, then you relaunch to the same people in the same way. And you're quietly stunned when the result is basically identical. I've had a version of this conversation more times than I can count. And there's one question that tends to shift the whole thing. And it's this. Before you launched, how many people genuinely knew this course was on its way? Not the internet in general, people who know you, who'd opened your emails, who'd told themselves, yes, when this comes out, I'm in. The answer is almost always some version of not many, or I don't really have an email list, or I posted about it, but I honestly don't know if anyone saw it. That's the real problem. Not the headline, not the price. It's the absence of a warm audience before the launch ever began. And that's the number I promised you. The size of the audience that already trusts you on the day you press go. Let me show you exactly why it decides everything. Let me define the two words this whole thing turns on because they get thrown around constantly and almost never pinned down. Cold traffic is anyone who meets your course with no prior relationship with you. Someone who finds your sales page through a Google search. Someone who's served an ad. Someone who clicks a link a friend dropped in a group chat. They don't know you. They've no reason to trust you yet. And they're being asked to evaluate you and your course at the same moment, which is an enormous amount to ask of a single page. Warm traffic is the opposite. It's anyone who already knows you, has already gotten something useful from you, and has already decided in some small way to follow what you do. Your email subscribers, the people who watch most of your videos, the person who's been in your community for 6 months and knows your name. Now, here's the part most launch advice quietly skips, the conversion reality. Across industries, a well-built sales page shown to cold traffic tends to convert somewhere between 1 and 3%. Organic and paid social cold traffic often sits at the lower end of that, around 0.5 to 1.5%. That's not me being pessimistic, that's roughly the benchmark you'll see echoed across conversion data. So 100 strangers land on your page and 1, maybe 2, maybe even 3 of them buy. A warm audience, people who know you, trust you, and have been waiting for this, converts in the region of 10 to 30%. sometimes higher on a small, tight list. That's not a small gap. Warm can convert 10 times harder than cold, off the exact same sales page and the exact same price. Let me put real numbers on it because this is where it really clicks. Launch to a warm list of 200 people, which is genuinely achievable in your first few months. At a 15% conversion rate, you make 30 sales. Launch to a cold audience of 2,000 strangers at 2% and you make 40. Slightly more sales, but you need 10 times the audience and far more time, money and luck to get there. Now, hold that against what actually happens on most first launches. No email list or a tiny one, a modest social following, a young channel, which means you're effectively launching to a cold audience of a few hundred people at most, while unconsciously expecting the conversion rate that only a warm audience ever produces. The maths simply doesn't work. And here's the hard part. No amount of headline rewriting changes the maths. You can polish a 2% page until it shines. It's still a 2% page. The lever that actually moves the number isn't on the page at all. It's who's looking at it. I want to sit here for a second because I don't want this to feel like I'm telling you off. This mistake is not a failure of intelligence or effort. Some of the hardest working, sharpest people I know have made it. And it's a failure of the advice ecosystem around course creation. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Almost every piece of content about launching a course is actually about the launch itself. The sales page, the email sequence, the launch week posts, open cart, close cart, countdown timers, bonuses that expire at midnight. All of that is real. And all of it works for people who already have a warm audience to launch to. That's the invisible asterisk nobody says out loud. The launch tactics assume the audience already exists. But if you're launching for the first time without an established audience, those launch mechanics are almost irrelevant to you. Because the launch is the last thing that happens. And if the work that was supposed to happen before it didn't happen, there's no launch tactic on earth that's retroactively going to fill the room. So what is the work that's supposed to happen first? It's the slow work of building an audience, getting real people onto an email list, making content that attracts the specific kind of people your course is built for, and earning their trust over weeks and months, so that when you finally say, here's the thing I made, they're already leaning into it. And here's why it gets skipped. This is the honest bit. That work is slow, and it's hard, and it's quiet, and it doesn't give you a dopamine hit. Watching your list crawl from 50 to 100 feels like nothing is happening. Pressing a launch button and watching a dashboard feels electric and real. So of course people skip the quiet part and sprint to the exciting part. Then they're blindsided when the exciting part doesn't pay out. There's even data on where this goes wrong. Analyses of tens of thousands of course creators keep landing on the same theme. The ones who sell consistently almost always had an audience, a list, a following, before they ever had a course. The course was the second thing they built, not the first. I'm not saying any of this from a mountaintop. I've made versions of this mistake myself. Most creators have. But internalizing it, really letting it change what you do first, is the thing that separates your next launch from the last one. So what do you actually do? There are two situations you might be in, and the fix is slightly different for each. Find yourself in one of them. Scenario 1. You haven't launched yet. This is honestly the best seat in the house because you still have time to do this in the right order. The sequence is simple to say and hard to be patient with. Build the audience first, then launch it. And no, that doesn't mean waiting until you have 10,000 subscribers. You don't need 10,000, you need 200 of the right people. 200 warm subscribers, people who know you, have gotten value from you, and are expecting the course, is more than enough to make a first launch genuinely worthwhile. 200 warm subscribers is realistic inside 3 or 4 months of consistent effort. Faster if you've got an existing network to tap. That's not a 5-year plan, that's a season. So what does that season actually look like? It starts with an email list, which is exactly what last week's video was about. A lead magnet that pulls in your ideal student. A simple opt-in page. A welcome sequence that builds trust on autopilot. And a steady trickle of traffic to that page from wherever your ideal student already spends time. I walked through the full setup, the opt-in page, the emails, all of it in last week's video. The link is in the description if you've missed it. Alongside the list, you're publishing content that shows what you know and quietly attracts the right person. YouTube videos, posts, articles, every piece aimed at the exact problem your course solves, every piece nudging people towards that email list. And here's the compounding part. By the time you press launch, the people on your list have had 3 months of you. They know your name. They've watched how you think. They already believe what you make is worth their time. That is who you want to launch to. And building that before you need it is the single most valuable thing you can do for your whole business. Or maybe you're in scenario 2. You've already launched and it fell flat. This one's harder, not because it's unfixable, but because the fix asks for the one thing you're least in the mood for after a bad launch. Patience. The instinct is to relaunch fast. Rewrite the sales page, try again next week, or throw ad money at cold traffic to force the numbers. Resist that. You'll be optimizing the wrong variable. Instead, go and do the audience work you skipped the first time. Build the list. Make the content. And warm up the people who did show up last time, even if there were only a handful of them. They're not a failure. They're your first fans. Give it 3 months, then relaunch to a warmer room. A second launch to a nurtured audience of even a few hundred people will, in my experience, almost always beat the first launch to thousands of strangers. Because now the relationship exists. The trust is real. The course stops being a thing a stranger wants me to buy to become a thing someone I respect is inviting me into. Same course, completely different answer. One more thing here because it comes up constantly. After a flat launch, a lot of creators quietly decide the idea itself is dead. Nobody wants it. Wrong niche. Start over. Well, sometimes that's true. But before you bury a good idea, ask whether the people who didn't buy even knew it existed. If you launched to 200 cold strangers and 5 of them bought, that isn't proof the idea is wrong. It might be proof the audience was cold. So go and ask. Talk to the people who didn't buy. Ask what held them back. Their answers will tell you whether you've got an audience problem or an offer problem. And those are completely different problems with completely different fixes. Confusing the two is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make. Let me tie this to the practical side for a moment, because I don't want it to float off as abstract advice. Everything I've described, the email list, the lead magnet, the welcome sequence, the opt-in page, I built all of it inside System.io. One login, the whole thing in one place. And here's the part that removes the last excuse. The free plan gives you everything you need to start building a warm audience from zero. An opt-in funnel, email marketing for a couple of thousand contacts, automated sequences that nurture subscribers while you sleep, no monthly fee to begin, no card required. This matters more than it sounds because email is where the trust you build actually pays off. One widely cited 2025 report put the average return on email marketing around £36 for every pound spent, comfortably ahead of any other channel. That return doesn't come from the tool. It comes from the warm relationship the tool lets you build and keep. Last week, I walked through the full setup end to end, building the opt-in page, writing the sequence, wiring it together so it runs on its own. If you haven't seen it, it's the hands-on companion to everything I've argued today. The link to this setup video is in the description below. So here's the biggest takeaway. The infrastructure to build a warm audience isn't complicated or expensive. It's a free System.io account and one clear lead magnet. The whole cost is consistency, showing up with something useful week after week until you've built an audience worth launching to. I'm afraid that's the boring version of course creation success, but it's also the true one. Let me bring it together as plainly as I can, because it deserves to be said simply. If your course isn't selling, or if you're lying awake worried it won't when you launch, the most likely explanation is not a weak sales page or the wrong price. It's that you don't yet have a warm audience to launch to. So the fix isn't faster, it isn't cleverer, it isn't a better headline. The fix is earlier. Build the audience before you need it. Get people onto your email list before you have anything to sell them. Make the content that attracts your ideal student before you're anywhere near ready to launch. 3 months of quiet, consistent work. A lead magnet, an opt-in page, a welcome sequence, and weekly content pointing at it, producing as a fundamentally different launch than pressing go with an empty room behind you. Not a guaranteed launch, not a perfect one, but one where the maths is finally working for you instead of against you. That's the thing worth building. And the earlier you start, the sooner it's already there when you need it. If you're not building your email list yet, last week's video walks through the whole setup, step by step. That's your starting point, and it's linked, as I said, in the description below. And if you want to start with the platform itself, the free account link is down there too. Everything I've described today runs on the free plan. No monthly fee, no card, no reason to wait. Next week, I want to talk about YouTube specifically. Why it's the one platform I'd prioritize above everything else as a course creator, and how to use it so you're building a buying audience, not just a viewing one. And if you've ever wondered whether YouTube is actually worth the effort, that video will give you a straight answer. Subscribe so it lands in front of you. And if today's video resonated with something you've been experiencing, tell me in the comments. I read every one, and knowing what's clicking with you genuinely helps me make the next one more useful. I'll see you next week.